You're walking along the street, or you're at a party, or else you're alone and then you suddenly dig. You're looking in someone's eyes, you suddenly realize that this could be the start of something big. You're lunching at 21 and watching your diet, declining a Charlotte bruise, accepting a fig. When out of the clear blue sky, it's suddenly gal and guy, and this could be the start of something big. There's no controlling the unrolling of your fate, my friend. Who knows what's written in the magic book?
But when a lover you discover at the gate, my friend, invite her in without a second look.
You're watching the sun come up and counting your money, girl. Or else in a dim cafe you're ordering wine. Then suddenly there he is, and you want to be where he is. And this must be the start of something. This could be the heart of something. This could be the start of something big.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Grand at Home. My name is Joe Ferlo. I am the director of the Grand Oshkosh, and I'm delighted you could be here for the first of our cocktail hours. Over the next several weeks, we're going to get to meet some of the artists in the 2020-2021 season. I do hope you're all doing well in these crazy times, and obviously the Grand is dark right now, and we're looking for our to put things in order for 2020-2021. We have announced the season. It opens September the 12th, and in the meantime, we'll do everything we can to make sure that the Grand is a comfortable and welcoming place for you just as soon as it can be. In the meantime, though, I thought it might be fun if you got to meet and get to know some of the artists who are part of the new season. And today we start with, ironically, the folks who are the last show of the season. That is in June of next year, 2021. The show is called the start of something big. It's the music of Steve and Eydie, and it's a wonderful tribute to the music and the careers of Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet. And joining me are the founders, the stars, the muse, the minds, and everything that has to do with that. They are Natalie Cordone and Shawn Kilgore. That caught you, Shawn. Welcome to the two of you. Let's see, Shawn, you're muted. I got to fix that. There you go. Now you've joined us.
There we go.
Good. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
I hope you. I have poured. I hope that our watchers at home have poured, and I thought we'll just get to know each of you. You are, of course, Cordone and Kilgore. My hat's off to you on the inventive naming of your duo.
That's where the creation all started.
But the thing is, let's take some time, and I do want to remind people that this is an interactive event. You should feel free, if you have questions for Natalie or Shawn or even for me, feel free to pop those up onto the screen, and we can we'll get your questions out in front of the artists and see what we can learn about them. So let's start with you, Shawn.
Okay.
First of all, you're both coming to us from Florida, which is your base now. But Shawn, you are a Midwesterner at heart, are you not?
I am. I'm originally from Brunswick, Ohio, about 30 miles outside of Cleveland.
And so your whole school through college and all happened in the Upper Midwest.
For the most part, yeah. I went, all the way through high school in my hometown of Brunswick, and then I went to Baldwin Wallace Conservatory of Music, which is also just very near downtown Cleveland. And then from there, I studied at the American Musical Dramatic Academy up in New York.
Great.
Yeah. So.
Is that correct? Well, isn't
I think we lost you there.
I said you are an East Coaster.
Are we talking to me now?
Yeah, I am talking to you now.
Sorry,
It froze a
Shawn.
little bit.
You're an East Coaster. Are you talking to me? Yeah.
Are you
Yeah,
talking to
you're
me? Are you talking to me? And my glass is even all New York, so I guess that's telling. I only asked because you froze on me for a second. I don't know if that happened to anybody else, but so I couldn't hear your question. So you're just asking if I was a native East Coaster.
I'm looking for your history.
Yeah. So I am originally from Maryland, right outside Washington, D.C. I was born in D.C. And then I grew up in Columbia, Maryland, which if anyone has been there, the thing they know about Columbia, Maryland is the mall. There's also Merriweather Post Pavilion. This was back when malls were a thing, right? Remember back then? Merriweather Post Pavilion, which is another big thing there in Columbia, Maryland. But it was a wonderful place to grow up. It was super family oriented, and it just had great libraries and places to hang out and grow up and be with family. So immediately after that, I left, and I went to Wake Forest in North Carolina. Go Deeks. I still go back and work with them occasionally. I vocal direct their musicals. So we just actually got COVIDed with doing Into the Woods. We were about to open Into the Woods. We were coming back from spring break. The Monday that we were coming back from spring break is actually when everything shut down. So all of my fellow Deeks out there, we will be back hopefully in the fall, and we'll start up again with Into the Woods. But so that's what I did my undergrad, and then I came down here to Florida to get my master's degree at the University of Central Florida.
Just to show you that the comments work.
Hi, Mom.
and hey, Ron.
Hey,
Thanks for
Ron.
joining us. So you got COVIDed, by the way, Natalie, for Oshkosh as well. You were last week. You were supposed to be introducing this season with me, and that just.
I know. It actually would have been Thursday. It would have been 2 days ago. Is that right? Yeah. That's hard to believe.
Yesterday, the 14th.
Yeah, yesterday. And tomorrow I was going to be doing a solo show up in Wisconsin. That was when I was supposed to debut one of my solo shows.
That's right. That's right. Out of in the West Coast, yeah.
Yeah,
West
it's unbelievable.
Wisconsin, that is.
West Coast to Wisconsin. Yeah. That's right. All the way to the West Coast.
So let's talk about what brings you to Florida. In any particular order, one of you lead me to Florida.
Go for it, Natalie.
Shawn? Okay. So, like I said, I came down to go to graduate school at the University of Central Florida. Go Knights. So that's what ended me up here in the Central Florida area. And then I sang with the Orlando Opera after I graduated from my master's program in theater. And then I went up to New York and did just what Shawn was talking about. I was auditioning and working all over New York, and then ended up coming back down to Florida to be with family. And when that happened, Shawn and I, very soon after that, we got cast in a show together. And
save that. We're
right.
going
that's
there.
what I'm saying. We gotta get to Shawn first, but that's where the story ends for now.
So how does Shawn find his way to Florida?
Living in New York, and booking a lot of regional theater gigs in South Florida at the time, and had family down here at the time as well, and decided just to make a move of it. Saw that I could really kind of make a career for myself and actually work instead of just audition and try to scrape my way up to it. So the constant work is what kept me here.
So there you are working solo, each of you, and then comes this wonderful production that puts you together in the most collaborative way.
Yes.
That is a very nice way of putting it.
How about that?
Yeah, very nice way to put it.
Shawn tells this story better than I do. I'll let him tell the story.
So we were cast in a show, Baby, the musical. We were the middle couple, Nick and Pam. Our couple is the couple that's desperately trying to get pregnant. They want to get pregnant so badly. So most of our scenes took place in a bed. We had to be very intimate the entire time. The second day of rehearsal, they were like, "There's your bed. Get in there. Let's see you kissy and get together." So we were doing that stuff from day two. So it led to a very close working relationship. Everyone commented on our chemistry. We started putting shows together, and the Orlando Philharmonic Orchestra started booking us as featured vocalists with them. And our audiences kept telling us, "You remind us so much of Steve and Eydie, the way we talk to each other, the way our chemistry is." And so that's what's sort of spawned the whole thing, was that people saying to us that we reminded them of Steve and Eydie. So Natalie, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, sure. So like he said, we had very specific audience members that would come up to us time and time again and kept bringing up Steve and Eydie. And I mean, we kind of knew who they were. I mean, we'd heard of them and we were sort of familiar with their music. But once we started listening to them, we just got completely obsessed. I mean, we watched every video, everything that's on YouTube. We've seen every interview they've ever done, we've read. And we started downloading their albums and buying their albums, and actually some of their actual record albums. And it was just amazing to watch a soprano and a baritone have such great arrangements of these beautiful tunes and to span so many decades with their music. And it's all music that we know and love, but set to the best arrangements we could imagine. And so we set off on trying to find a way that we could honor both their relationship, because we love that they were, not only did they work together, but they were working together and married for 55 years, which to me is just an unbelievable feat. And having that as the backbone of our show, while they also had over 90 albums that they did together, so we had all that music to pick from, was like, if we can't make a show out of this, well then, come on. What more could you ask for?
It's such a great story to tell, a story of a marriage that lasts 55 years in the entertainment industry, especially when you're at that level, when you're hanging out with Sinatra, when you're doing those kinds of things and you're at that level and you can make your marriage last that long. And they had some major ups and downs. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the show, is that it's all of this music that you know and love, and you might not realize that Steve and Eydie had recorded them, but their arrangements are so unique. And I think it was Don Costa who did the majority of their arrangements. But they're just so they're so unique in the way they do little twists and turns in them. So there's songs that you're familiar with, and you're like, oh, that's what makes it Steve and Eydie. So it's just like it's undeniable their arrangements.
And of course, their marriage only ended because Eydie passed away, and they were happily married until she left.
Right.
One of the things that as I was watching your showcases and getting to know you and getting to know the show about Steve and Eydie, and you mentioned it a little bit here already, is maybe it's because they were married that they could get away with a chemistry and a banter and a back and forth that that was delightful in how genuine it was.
Sure.
Now you two are not married to each other.
We are not.
So, but it's not acting.
We could very well be. I mean,
yeah.
What's the relationship is very much like a marriage in a lot of ways, just without being an actual marriage. Right?
Yeah, well, no, you're totally right. And if you say anything terrible, I'll slap you the frying pan later, good old Italian lady style. No, I think because Shawn and I have been working together for 9 years? 8 years? 9 years?
Yeah.
Coming up on 9 years now. So we really have gone through a lot of ups and downs. I mean, we've seen lots of stuff happen in each other's personal lives as well as work-wise. I mean, we've traveled and toured together through all of these cities and all of these different hotels and places.
Yeah. Sorry.
Really cut me off. It's like we're married. It's fine.
I know, right? Exactly.
What do you want to say?
I didn't think you'd let me talk at all, so I'm happy to have a few minutes here.
Now that would be
it would mute me, and then I'd be out of it completely. So.
We could riff like this for hours.
I think it's great.
Unfortunately, you don't have to say much. So I'm sorry, Shawn. What were you going to say, honey, dearest, love of my life?
No, I don't even remember.
It was something about how we've been at it for such a long time. Anyway, we've been touring together for a long time, and it's been amazing to watch the growth of the show, and also to watch how everybody does think we're married. I think just because we do love each other so much. And so being on stage together, we get to have a kind of intimacy that you only get to have with somebody that you work with that closely.
Yeah.
And it's like a different kind of marriage. It is that, I mean, we're very committed to our show. We're very committed to the work that we do together. And that, I think, comes across in everything that we do. It's not like we just started, 3 days ago, or like Shawn was saying, part of the reason why being in Florida has been so great for both of us is that we have created our own work and we've taken it all over the place. And we still work, we still sing with symphonies and we still do musicals and we love getting to go out and collaborate with other artists. But there's something different about being cast in a show and being thrown in with other people who have different ideas about what they want to do versus creating something of your own and really falling in love with it and then changing it as it grows. It's kind of like its own little child of sorts that, like, as it grows up, you have to grow up with it. And so I think that has helped to make our relationship even stronger as we've gone along. That and lots of therapy, right, Shawn?
You got a fan, Nat.
Oh, Aunt Betty, I love you so much. You know me since I was born, obviously.
So let's take that. I've got a couple of questions coming off what you just said. First, it's 9 years together, working together, but you have each continued solo work while you're doing that. Let's talk a little bit about that because it's such a breath from the nightclub style of singing. You've got a little bit of everything going on, and I want to talk a little bit about some of that background.
Sure.
Hi.
Yeah, we both work in different regional theaters across the state and across the country. So whenever we can get lucky enough to book those kind of jobs in the theaters, we'll do those. But we both produce our own solo shows. Natalie will talk about her side business, but I also have a full-time day job currently right now with Universal Orlando, working in the human resources side and doing training, but utilizing a lot of my creative skills, usually creating voiceover, creating online content, and that kind of thing. For them, so it's a hustle. It's a gig life. It's whatever. I'll wash your car. What do you need me to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Natalie, how about you?
So one of the things that Shawn failed to mention, because he's so multi-talented, not only does he do voiceovers, but he also does all kinds of video creation. And we have a brand new promo video for the show because of Shawn's skills, which he uses on the production side also at work. So I'm very grateful that he's as multi-talented as he is. It's nice to be able to wear a lot of hats. So on my front, I do work primarily as a singer and an actor, and along with doing musicals still and doing some on-camera work and straight plays, I also sing with symphonies around the country. So two of the gigs that got postponed on me were Shawn and I on April 5th. We're supposed to be singing with the Orlando Philharmonic Orchestra, which is now, it's still coming. It just hasn't happened yet. But we're doing a show called Cirque de la Symphonie, which is not only the 65-piece orchestra, but it's also Cirque performers that are like hanging from the ceiling and spinning around on poles and doing all kinds of stuff. And Shawn and I are the soloists. We're the singers for the event. So that's a very cool thing to get to do. And then I was supposed to sing with the San Antonio Symphony as well, coming up on May 29th. And then again, I produce my own shows and tour around those. Hopefully one will be coming to Wisconsin fairly soon. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, my other business is that I run the Connected Performer, which is a musical theater coaching business. So I work with young musical theater performers in finding ways to make a long career. So everything from building their audition books and finding great repertoire for them to actual acting and vocal technique, to fostering relationships and making it so that you can have a long career in this business, because that's not an easy thing to do. And I love working with young performers. They're so excited and they have so much energy and just a zest for the business that I think if you don't reach out to that demographic every once in a while, you can forget. So it's been a real joy to work with those students as well.
So we have these careers that came together 9 years ago, and then they are together and they're divergent, and then occasionally they converge again, not just on your touring stage, but on the legit stage. And I bring that around because, of course, since the two of you have come on my radar, I've kept a better eye out. And your last appearance together on stage was decidedly different from the Steve and Eydie experience.
Very much so. Yeah.
Well, was it though? Was it really that much different, Shawn?
Probably not really. Still holding out that proverbial football.
Do you want to tell them all about it?
Yeah, the last one. Well, we've actually gotten to do quite a few very fun roles together. We did a show called "I Love My Wife," which was from the 1970s Cy Coleman musical, I believe, right? Where and again we were in a bed for a good portion of the show,
but with two other people at the same time. Weird, oddly.
Yeah, those characters were really fun. That was a lot of fun. And then our most recent show we did together was "You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown," and I was Charlie Brown and she was Lucy.
Again, it is kind of a similar sort of relationship, I suppose, if you think about it. More similar to you two personally than to the Steve and Eydie side of things, I would think. But so where in the course of this 9-year timeline do you say to each other, let's do the people are said we're getting compared favorably to these people and we love their music. Let's put on a show. Where does that happen? And how does that get from point A to today?
A lot of learning, a lot of hard work, a lot of talking to people and mentoring people. And we've been very, very blessed to meet the people that we have, yourself included. But, Lisa Rock and the folks at Epic Arts Management, Ron and Melissa, a bunch of other people too that we've met through that same sort of circle. So really good mentors, and just making the decision that we could really take control and we could really, instead of relying on someone else to give us the job, we could, create the job. And so that's sort of how it all came about.
Yeah. And when Shawn and I met, we were both, so I was actually producing a cabaret of my own at the time, and Shawn was singing with the Orlando Philharmonic Orchestra. So the day that I met Shawn, he was running he had our rehearsal in the morning, and then he would leave and he would go to rehearsal with the Orlando Philharmonic in the evening because he was playing Billy Bigelow with the Orlando Philharmonic. So he looked like a pretty big man on campus when I met him, which is pretty amazing. The first time I actually heard him sing, other than in rehearsal with me, was on this huge stage, like 2,500 seats, with a huge orchestra behind him. So not a bad introduction. And at that time I was producing my own cabaret, a one-woman show. And so we started talking about how much we liked working together pretty early on in the rehearsal process of meeting each other. It really was kind of it's probably the closest thing, I'm going to get flack for this, but it's probably the closest thing I've ever had to like love at first sight when it comes to work, for sure, where it was like, oh, no, I have to work with this guy again. And so pretty early on, we started talking about wanting to do something that was collaborative and kind of bigger than a cabaret, but we didn't know quite what we wanted to do with it. And so we created 2 shows, I think, before we created the Steve and Eydie show. So we created a show called Hooray for Love, which we still do around the Valentine's Day time, that has tons of love songs that we just wanted to sing in each other's faces, which we do pretty well. And then we created a show called It Takes Two, which is all duets. So everybody from Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, every major duet you've ever heard kind of thrown into one. And then as we were developing these shows is when our audiences were seeing us with the Philharmonic, because we were singing with them now, and also coming to our concert type theatrical shows. Mm-hmm. And that's when they kept saying like, hey, do Steve and Eydie, do Steve and Eydie. And one of the things I love about our audiences is that they believe we can do anything. So it's kind of like saying to somebody like, hey, here's this idea for an airplane, go build it. Right. And they believed in us enough to think we could do it. And so that's how we came to that process. So it was probably 2 years after we met that we started the Steve and Eydie show, and we were touring Hooray for Love and It Takes Two at that point, and working collaboratively on Steve and Eydie's, the Steve and Eydie tribute show at the same time. So, and it took maybe a year to get off the ground from like inception to having all the charts created, having like all the work that goes into it to actually putting it up. I think is that right, Shawn?
I believe so. Yeah. And I mean, it happened pretty early on. We did those first 2 shows, I believe, in the first year that we were working together, because I think we're in like 7 to 8 years of doing Steve and Eydie, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I'm not going to disagree with you.
At least not on camera.
Yeah,
no.
Right. I know better. So whatever you.
That's right. That's how you get to 55 years. Never do it on camera.
Right.
I am of a certain age where I need no introduction to Steve and Eydie. In fact, I'm at a stage in my professional career where I darn near got them at the start of my career, live on stage, and it didn't happen, and it's one of the regrets, because I would have loved to have had that on my stage. But for the folks who don't know, or don't know that they know who Steve Lawrence and Eydie Gourmet is, Shawn, I'm not throwing Natalie under the bus when I say this. I just know that, for starters, I have heard you describe Steve and Eydie's career a few times, and so I'm going to ask you to kick it off. Who are these two people?
So they met when they were very young. They were both cast as singers on the original Tonight Show, which was the Steve Allen show. So he brought them together, cast them as the two singers on the show. They would walk out with him at the beginning of the show. We actually do use a little bit, a clip of that, of them coming out. And they fell in love, and they got married. And when they got married, it was probably the most widely publicized wedding America had ever seen up to that point. They became sort of huge instant superstars in their time. So here, then they began creating, working together, so recording albums together, and they both began recording their solo careers. So very early on, had some big hits. Steve had a hit with Party Doll, Go Away Little Girl, a couple other tunes, and of course everyone knows Eydie's Blame It on the Bossa Nova, and of course If He Walked Into My Life. Sorry, I didn't know if I'd get it, but it came. And so then, of course, they just went on for many, many decades, performing in the nightclubs of Las Vegas, and becoming really the toast of Las Vegas, and being huge stars on television. When the television variety show really became a thing, they were, made several appearances on the Hollywood Palace as the host. They were regulars on the Carol Burnett show. They were everywhere in the entertainment industry, television. They were recording, they were performing live. Steve Lawrence actually went on to be in the movie The Blues Brothers, which is a little kind of a coincidence, because I played Jake Blues, the John Belushi role, for many years at Universal a couple of years ago. So we have that little connection. And of course, Eydie's had an amazing career, sort of, very close up to the end. So and Steve was still going there for a while. He was still touring. A couple of years ago, we had tickets to see him on Valentine's Day. And then something happened and he had to cancel. But, careers that lasted multiple decades. They were Emmy winners. They won Grammys, multiple Grammys. They recorded over 95 albums in the course of their career. Something that's sort of kind of unheard of, I think, if you really look at many of today's artists.
I think what I find interesting is that we think about the solo careers and the charting, but Blame It on the Bossa Nova, I think, probably was a top 10 hit. And
yes, yeah.
Go Away Little Girl.
It was number one in South Africa, Sweden, and Australia, and it sat at number 7, I think, for several weeks here in the United States.
Wow, we may not be playing baseball, but clearly I threw you a fat pitch just there. And a lot of the generations beyond me think of Go Away Little Girl is that Donny Osmond, young Donny Osmond, singing that?
He may have recorded it also.
I think he did. But Steve Lawrence, did he go number 1 with that? I believe he went number 1 with that song back in the day. So these guys, these two, not unlike Cordone and Kilgore, were powerhouses on their own, even before they got together. What I love, and I don't have any specific, but if you in the age of Google, they glowingly spoke of each other.
Oh yeah.
Even when the other wasn't around and they didn't have to. you know.
Some of the best things on YouTube are their talk show appearances. There's a YouTube video of them on the Joan Rivers show that's just so, you really get a glimpse into the love that they had for each other. This was a little bit later. They were older. They had already lost their son. So they talk about that a little bit and see how they sort of worked through that together, that like incredible tragedy, and how it made them stronger for going through it. Some really great appearances, some old game show appearances from What's My Line, and there's some great stuff out there.
Yeah. Here's putting you on the spot. We've named the solo hits. Do you have a favorite solo number, each of you, from the catalog?
Oh, that's good. That's a good question. Natalie, you go.
Okay. Well, so the first one that came to mind happens to be one of Eydie's songs. I love to sing it, but really it's my favorite because of the way that it came to me and because of how she did it. So What Did I Have That I Don't Have is a tune from On a Clear Day, You Can See Forever. And a lot of people know Barbra Streisand's version, or other versions that have been done over the years. But Eydie Gourmet's recording of that song, when I heard it, it stopped me in my tracks. We had been listening to so much Steve and Eydie at that point, and I'd already fallen in love with her song interpretation, her vocals, the way she's able to use that powerhouse voice of hers really to tell a story, I thought was incredible. And What Did I Have is a very interesting song because it's really just a series of questions, which can be kind of hard to make into something that you care about and want to listen to when you just see it on the page as a musician. But it is one of the most beautiful interpretations of a song I've ever heard. And the very first time I heard it, I actually stopped what I was doing and I sat and I just listened to it on repeat for almost an hour. And I've never had that experience with a song ever in my life. But I thought, if I can do this song justice ever, like if I could learn how to do that, then this whole process would be just so worthwhile to me. It's like its own little master's degree in learning how to sing and perform and be a diva, because she absolutely was, in every sense of the word. She was the ultimate diva. She could back it up in every way possible. And so if you ever get a chance to go listen to that that album, it's well worth listening to her sing it. That's my favorite of all the solo numbers that they ever did. Even though If He Walked Into My Life is the one that she won the Grammy for, I personally like What Did I Have That I Don't Have better. It's a similar kind of tune. Shawn, what's your favorite?
For me, it would probably be Portrait of My Love. I think for me, of all the songs that I do in the show of his, it comes at a beautiful moment in the show. It really sort of sums up their relationship together, you know. So it's a beautiful tune, and that just, you know, it's nice to sing about that and to have, you know, a picture of them up there and to know what we're talking about and that kind of enduring love and that kind of thing. So that's my favorite number that I do in the show. My favorite number in the show, though, is Natalie singing What Did I Have That I Don't Have, because she is very modest, but she does more than do it justice, and she brings the house down with it every single show. It does not matter where we are. The audiences go nuts at the end of that tune.
Thanks, baby.
I'll be disappointed if you have the same answer, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't. Now, your favorite duet by the two of them. Not necessarily in the show, not necessarily you with each other, but your favorite Steve and Eydie duet.
That's cool. Oh. For me, it's I'm going to say Come Back to Me, which is actually going into the show. We're actually going to be adding that coming up here pretty soon, so I'm excited for that. So that's always been one of my favorites ever since I started looking into them, and so I'm happy that it's going to come in.
And mine is Two Lost Souls from Damn Yankees.
It's hard to pick a duet. It's hard to pick one.
It is really hard.
Guys, here's another shout out. Lisa Rock, of course, is the person who dragged my sorry rear end into your showcase.
I'm so glad she did.
and set this whole thing up. So I'm not quite sure how she's walking and signing in and watching, but hopefully she doesn't walk into something along the way. I'm impressed too. That's multitasking.
That's Lisa Rock.
Who wants to tell me about the title and the significance of the song, The Start of Something Big? Which actually I didn't realize until I did some research was originally the song is actually the start of something.
Yeah.
And the big just kind of found its way in. That surprised me. Anyway.
Yeah. So Steve Allen wrote it, and it was the theme song that they used for the Tonight Show originally. Mm-hmm. And then as far as I understand it, it's sort of just evolved into their signature tune as they started performing.
There is a delightful clip of Steve and Eydie, and is it Steve Allen and somebody else doing that number together? Yeah, they're doing that number. Yeah, for the Tonight Show, I think it was actually. Yeah, delightful. So moving forward, and this is kind of a technical question for if an audience saw this show now and they saw this show 2 years later, you just mentioned, Shawn, that the song was working its way in. Are you continually finding things to work their way in? Is it an evolution as time goes by?
Yeah, very much so. I like to think of it that way. I mean, we are continuing to look at things, even though we feel like we exhausted ourselves in the research. There's still so much out there. They did so much that we're always learning new stuff. And one of the beautiful things about it is that the number of times we've performed the show, we've been able to meet people, and people have come up to us and said that they knew them, or that they had their own, or they worked with them, and so they had their own personal stories. So now our show is peppered with all of these sort of personal experiences that aren't on Google, that have come from friends and family members. And another really cool thing that happened to both of us, was it after Charlie Brown?
It was after a Charlie Brown, after one of our Your Good Man Charlie Brown shows.
Your Good Man Charlie Brown show. And we always, for that theater, they do a meet and greet line at the end. So we're standing in the line, and a couple comes through, and they have seen the show. They're familiar with the Steve and Eydie show that we do. And they bring us each in hard plastic covers and autographed pieces of paper. They gave me the one that was that they wrote, that Steve wrote to this person, and they gave Natalie the one that Eydie wrote to this person. And it was somebody who worked with them, I guess, or something. It seemed like a very personal, friendly kind of note, that has their signatures on it, and it's in hard plastic. So that's been a really nice way to add things to the show as well. As soon as we learn something new, we'll try to talk about it a little.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because obviously the show is going to either introduce or remind or take people back through the music to Steve and Eydie. But you've got a visual and a storytelling and kind of a theme that weaves through this whole show as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, tell me about it.
Let's go leave it there. Yep, that is true.
Is this your first interview? Yes.
Yes. Fact. No.
You're silent again. Do you want me to tell him?
Right? And now I don't even remember the question. All I know is that we're laughing at each other, which makes me happy.
I'm losing people.
What'd you say? Are you losing me? Can you hear me?
Stick with me. Natalie's back.
I'm back.
Start again. I was just reading something that said, I was just reading something, as I told you, I'm starting to learn my way through this program, right? And it's like, here's a good live stream and here's a bad live stream. And it shows the good live stream happening, and on a bad live stream, those circles of death are going.
Oh,
and
gosh,
I just saw them with you guys just now. And I was like, no, we can't have the circles of death.
No circles of death on our end. No, I think we were very much
good.
We were alive and well. Yeah, we were
excellent.
Good.
Maybe, hopefully it's just me. Maybe I just imagined them. So,
well, the thing is that I think the circle of death was happening. I have COVID brain right now, so I don't know what you just asked. What'd you just ask us? It was something really exciting.
I did tell you. Tell me about the theme and the story and the visuals and what else. What's happening for the audience.
Sure. So, along with the beautiful music of the show, Shawn and I. Well, first of all, it's no secret that we love a good costume, and we love to make a theatrical production out of everything we do. So knowing that it's just going to be the two of us coming in and out of stage, we want to make it as exciting as we can for the audience. So when it's available in the theater, we have a version of the show that has an audio-visual element to it that helps to tell the story. And Shawn and I love the fact that what we get to do throughout the show is not only sing these iconic songs that Steve and Eydie made, even more beautiful than they were to begin with, but we get to tell not only their story, but our story and how they work together. And really, I think some of the most fun things, we've been doing the show for such a long time, but we still end up kind of ad-libbing, and like when things happen, we're there with the audience. We love the audience. We love for them to be kind of a part of the living organism of the show. So as things happen, we end up talking to each other on stage. And I think that's part of what, again, drew people to say that we reminded them of Steve and Eydie, because like you mentioned earlier, in an era where you couldn't get away with saying stuff on television like you can now, I mean, who could, right?
Right.
They got away with a lot, and we're not trying to get away with it. We just kind of interact with each other the same way that they did all those years ago. So the banter that is somewhat scripted, I mean, we have a script that we've worked very hard on, but we also are so comfortable with the show now that we love to be able to bring that spontaneous element to it that Steve and Eydie always had, in telling their story and in also telling ours, and weaving that in and out of the music and letting that whole experience take the audience on a journey of the 55 years of Steve and Eydie's work together.
I want to go back to the music for a second.
Sure.
And I have one more music question that I've been wanting to ask. Is there a Steve and Eydie duet out there in that vast repertoire that you have not yet tackled, that you keep saying to yourselves, yeah, we got to try this one. We got to do this one?
Yeah, there's their Hallelujah, their song Hallelujah. That's one that audience members have mentioned a couple of times. And man, I don't know. There's so much. I mean, Natalie, do you have anything?
Yeah, well, so we get a chance to do Bésame Mucho in our show, but we only get to touch on, this isn't necessarily duet oriented, but we only get to touch on Eydie's Spanish career a bit in the show, just because we don't want it to take over the show, but she had such a vibrant career in the Latin world of music as well. And she worked with the trio Los Panchos, as well as working with Steve and working as a solo artist. And so that's something that I wish we could maybe get a little more into, but we do Sabórame, I do, and then we do Bésame Mucho together. So I wish we could add little pepperings of that into the show a little bit more, but I don't know that it is, I don't know. We just don't have enough time. Like, there's just so much to do. And we already do these huge medleys to try to fit so much in that, yes, I think no matter what show we create, there will always be songs that we won't be able to get to, because there's just too much. There's just too much music out there. We could create a new show every week and there'd still be music left to do.
I told you those were my last musical questions, and I lied.
That's all right.
Because this one just spurred out of this kind of what if kind of thing. When you think about Steve and Eydie, either solo or as a duet, as a duo, what's out there that you wish they had recorded, either solo or together, based on your intimacy and then your knowledge of the way they work? I mean, perhaps it wasn't written at the time. You know what I mean? What is there something? Nat?
I know. For me, I know what it is for me. I would love to have heard them sing The Prayer, which is was made most famous by Andrea Bocelli and Celine Dion, although lots of other folks have sung it. I mean, Josh Groban did it as well with, I think, Charlotte Church. But I would have loved to have heard Eydie really soar on that top part, and to have had Steve be able to take that sort of the meat of the bottom of it while she does I think it just would have been a spectacular duet between the two of them. And I'm sorry that it came out so late that it wasn't at a time when they could record it together. But man, I would have loved to have heard that on them.
You know, what's fun for me is to look at some of the things that happened a little bit later in their careers, like in the Japan concert where they do That's What Friends Are For, the Dionne Warwick, tune. they did. Well, can't remember the name of the album, but they recorded the song "Black Hole Sun," which was, and I'm not going to be able to think of the name of the group off the top of my head right now either.
It's Loungeapalooza is the name of the album.
Oh my God, I love that you remember that.
Soundgarden. Soundgarden is the original. Yes, I was in high school. I actually know the original. Soundgarden.
Extra points. Extra points.
And there's a video out there that, Shawn, you should talk about.
It's bizarre. You should just look up Steve and Eydie Black Hole Sun. It's an interesting video. They had set out a standard for themselves. Like they weren't gonna. They came up in a time where like rock and roll was invented and rock and roll became famous, and they weren't going to go that route. They were going to stick to what they were good at and what they knew that they could do and what they knew sold their tickets. And so they had said that at one point they like set this standard for themselves that said no punk, no funk, no rock, and no schlock. And they're like, all right,
yeah.
You might have touched on the schlock a little with the Black Hole.
I'm gonna make sure that goes on your tombstone, Shawn.
We're bringing you in June, so we probably won't hear much of this. But what about their holiday repertoire? It's so much fun.
Love it. My favorite Christmas album of all time. Yeah. It's so good.
So
we do have it available. We have it available as a holiday offering. So what we normally do with that, because they only had the one holiday album. So we do with the majority of that album as Act 1, and then we'll do a regular like condensed version of the Steve and Eydie show as Act 1, then the holiday stuff is Act 2. Is the way we've done it before. But love it. I mean, some of the best arrangements and best holiday music. Really, by far, my favorite holiday album.
Their arrangements I've always found kind of interesting, and I don't want to music theory geek my way out through this, but it strikes me that they were particularly good as duet artists in flipping melodies.
Yes.
That even from phrase to phrase in a song, more so than a lot of duet artists.
Yeah, it was sort of like wherever it sounds best in each person's. I mean, the person that did the arrangements for them just knew them. He knew their voices. He knew what they could do and what would work best. And it's really interesting. Some of it's a little bit different than what you normally get with a male-female duet kind of thing. Whereas the male in their arrangements is a lot of times, well, actually it sort of goes back. It does go back and forth, but but it goes above her a little more often.
Right.
Well, and they both had such spectacular ranges that the amount of play that they could have between, especially with Eydie's range, because it was huge, was kind of it was a huge benefit to them being able to do these arrangements that were so spectacular because they could play around all over the place. And they actually wrote for voices back then, which is not happening a lot now, right? So it was written to make the voice really beautiful on that melody. Geeking over.
Let's talk about you two right now, because we're in my side of the world right now. As I talk about the Grand and I talk about COVID and surviving as a presenter and surviving as a booker of artists and what it's going to look like and how the industry is going to change. What's really gets lost in this is the other side of this. There are all of my friends who are artists who were touring, who are not touring right now. And as tentative as I am about saying, every time I say, gee, I don't think I'm going to book anything until, October, that those are gigs that are not going to happen until, along the way. How are you doing? I mean, you know what I mean? It's just kind of how are you doing to get through that? And I don't mean the nuts and bolts. I don't want to know if you're, delivering food or whatever along the way. But I mean, just as working artists, the two of you, normally we'd be having an interview. You'd be sitting in a room together. You'd sing a song or two. We can't do that right now. So how are you dealing?
I feel really blessed with the fact that we have such strong relationships, both with each other and with our management. We love Ron and Melissa. We love Lisa and the people that have brought us in, that we feel pretty confident that we are right now just strengthening our show and the creative juices that we're able to flow with, like I mentioned earlier, Shawn just put out a brand new promo video that just went up this morning. We're constantly working on revamping our shows. We've got so many things that we've been so busy touring that have been backburnered for us that we didn't like, they were just bubbling in the background and we knew we'd find time to get to them. But I hate to say it, but we kind of hoped we never did, because we kind of hoped we just kept working. So we never had time to fix them. Right. And so in this time, being able to be grateful for the work that we have, and for people like you who are bringing us in for next year, having no idea what the world's going to look like, that we're still feeling that forward momentum and we're working every day. We're sitting down at the piano, we're singing our songs, we're texting a ton, just trying to make sure that we're still on top of what the other one's doing, that all our families are well, and that mentally we're feeling good about what's happening. I think we are going to be okay. I am most concerned with artists who don't have the same kind of support that we do, that haven't found that groove of having a partner that will support you through something like this. And so I think reaching out to other artists and just checking in on people and making sure that they're doing okay, and being there for people who might not be as fortunate as we are to have already been working on projects that we feel really passionate about, and inspiring young artists who are, for me, the people who are just coming out of school, who were like ready to move to New York and do this and now don't know what to do. That's the scary part. And we have ways that we've gone through. We've been through 9/11. We've been through, as professional artists, like terrible things happen in the world, and we are able to harness that and use it as creative material for later, for us. And so I just feel really blessed that Shawn and I have each other and a really supportive network surrounding us to keep us sane while this is all happening.
I agree. I'll second that. I think having work to do on the show and to say, well, let's take this time and really take a hard look at it. And what do we want to change? And what do we want to switch around? Having that work to do has sort of kept us sane. Of course, while we're doing it, we're saying to each other, are we ever going to do this again? Is this even what, so there's a little scary element. Like, will we ever sing in front of an audience again? I know that we will, and I know that will happen. But, with as uncertain as things are, it is so good to have somebody that you can actually kind of joke around a little bit with, but still be able to to work seriously on the project and to advance it and get it to its next level.
Great. So we're winding up to the end of our cocktail hour. If you had a pitch line for Katie or any one of our listeners now, and of course this will stay on our YouTube channel after this, about your show. We've got time now, right? And what I know what I would say, and what I would say is that everything about this show, in terms of its energy, in terms of its chemistry, in terms of it, all the non-musical elements, that stuff is geared towards that intimate little grand Oshkosh, and I think that's going to be part of the wonderful experience. What about the show itself?
I think the joy of this show is that it is about love. It is a show that's about the love between two people who created the music. It's about the love between me and Shawn, who loves singing this music. And it's about the love of an era where things had a glitz and a glam that has been lost in the easy breezy, comfortable everyday nature of us putting on our yoga pants and getting on our phones, to when the going to a show was an event. And I love that we're able to bring that to people now. And I think by the time we get to come to you guys, we're all going to be ready to get out, have a little glitz and glam, and be out of our houses and out of our yoga pants. So I know I certainly am. So yeah, that for me is something that differentiates our show from a lot of other shows that I see these days, is just the love and the joy that comes out in this music and between the two of us in the show.
And I'd say it's the ultimate love story. That's a story of a love that survived the ups and downs of Hollywood, that survived the loss of a child, and it's beautiful music, and it's we do our best to make it fun and engaging, and like Natalie said, to really be present with the audience so that it's a living, breathing thing. We're not standing out there reciting lines about what happened in Steve and Edie's life. We're sharing the story and how it relates to us. They met when they were cast on a show together. We met when we were cast on a show together. They began working, we began working. It's sort of, and we began working shortly after Edie passed. She passed August in 2013, and we started working on the show sort of shortly after that. So it all sort of feels like it was meant to be for us. I don't know if that's a pitch.
I think that's great. No, I absolutely think that does. Well, I can see by the old clock on the wall and the empty glass that we're reaching the end of our time. Thank you. I do want to point out for anybody who was to tune this in and would look for us on the Grand at Home channel that this is not the first time you've appeared on the Grand at Home channel. We actually have you were one of the first to air, one of the first to put together one of our shows back when things happened. That's still online, and people can still find us there. So we encourage them to tune in there. So in the meantime, stay healthy, stay well. I know you don't have to perform for me for another year, but we'd like for you to stay healthy in between. I'm sure we will be in touch. Natalie Cordone and Shawn Kilgore, thanks for being with us for the first of the cocktail hours.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it very much.